And a very good afternoon to you, and a very warm welcome on a particularly cold afternoon from Davos. We're at the Belvedere Hotel, probably the only time they'll ever let me into this particular place, at least before they throw me out afterwards. And you're all most welcome to our discussion. The World Economic Forum takes as its title, Improving the State of the World, a rather pretentious and pompous piece of nonsense, but we've decided to elevate it a little bit higher today. We're talking about improving the state of the LGBT workforce. It's a discussion, a point on diversity that quite often seems to be lost on the official programme of the WEF here in Davos. Joining me to discuss this, very grateful to have Sander van der Noordende, Group Chief Executive of Accenture. Welcome, sir. You are most welcome.
Good to be here.
Beth Brooke-Marciniak, the Global Vice Chair of Policy at EY. And Antonio Simoes, the Chief Executive Officer. You've got a lot of initials. You're the CEO of HSBC UK.
Exactly, Richard.
Is that in the right order?
It is. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Absolutely.
I guess with all your elevated status in the world, you're used to the Belvedere, aren't you, Beth?
We've been here a few times.
Let's begin with this debate and this discussion, improving the state of the LGBT workforce. Before we go any further, what are your credentials for sitting on this panel?
I came out when I was 19. When I joined Accenture, I've always been open, and now I'm here. So that's my credentials.
So you've been out since you were 19. And at any stage within Accenture, and I'm aware you're still there, was there an uncomfortable moment?
There have been uncomfortable moments, but not to the extent that they have influenced my career. The uncomfortable moments are more in one-on-ones with clients or with Accenture colleagues, and they happen. And everybody knows that they happen all the time.
We'll come to those in a moment. Beth, what's your qualification to be with us today?
Senior out executive. I came out at EY about 3 years ago, and really had the experience of coming out late in my career, and just the tremendously positive experience and transformational effect of that person.
How long had you been at EY?
4 years.
Right, so for 3 decades, you were, pardon the phrase, in the closet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it an open closet that everybody knew Beth was, but just nobody ever said to Beth's face?
You'd have to ask everybody.
You must know, in hindsight.
I think most people didn't know. I actually was married for 13 years to a man, and that was a great cover for many years.
I was about to say, that is a rather good,
That's a good story.
Good story, yes.
Yeah.
Antonio.
So I've been out in the 3 companies where I've worked, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs. I was, I think, one of the few open bankers at Goldman Sachs, and I'm now open at HSBC. I lead 43,000 people in the UK. And I've made it actually a big part of my own leadership style to be open about most things, including my sexuality.
43,000 people. Now, I mean, this is, and you're leading how many?
About 8,000.
We have 190,000.
The lady has it in the middle.
I'm not running.
Well, we have 300,000, but she's
Oh,
not running.
That's right.
Now we're getting the. Well, let's leave that. Antonio, okay. I want to go straight to the difficult. The LGBT agenda that's in the C-suite at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's there, but is it there willingly, or is it there with, oh God, we better deal with this because they're making a fuss?
I think, Richard, it's become fashionable to actually be pro-diversity, particularly LGBT diversity. There's lots of CEOs these days, even here at Davos, talking about LGBT diversity. So I think it's become a bit of a barometer of how progressive a company is, and I think if you are accepting of LGBT diversity, you tend to be actually quite progressive about other issues too.
It's pretty easy I'm going to be blunt here, it's pretty easy to be accepting of the LGBT agenda when you're a bank and consulting companies. I mean, liberal elites.
Well, there are many other companies, chemicals companies, consumer goods companies, who have an LGBT agenda just like we do. So, I mean, I don't think it's any easier there or here.
So what's happening in the C-suite?
Well, what's happening in the C-suite is companies care about growth and they care about talent, and that doesn't matter what industry you're in. Talent is critical to your success. So that's what's going on in the C-suite. And if you are focused on growth and talent, you care about this issue. You care about diversity increasingly. What's amazing is CEOs are starting to recognize that if you've got a lot of your workforce closeted, they're likely, 70%, if you are closeted, 70% of them are likely to leave the company. That's a business issue.
Does it? Go ahead.
I was going to disagree with Richard, actually. I don't think banking is particularly a liberal elite, to your point. And actually,
at the top?
No, actually.
In the C-suite?
Not really, actually. How many gay out CEOs are there of financial services companies? Actually, that's one of the reasons why I felt that it was important to be visible. I think that's true for the three of us, that we were, even when we're out, we're not necessarily that visible. But at some point, you need to show that it's okay to be gay in a sort of normal, relaxed way. So I would not take for granted that either professional services firms or banking are that liberal today. I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Does it matter, do you think, whether or not the C-suite adopts the LGBT agenda, or at least works with the LGBT on the grounds that they believe in the agenda, or the practicalities, the pragmatist who says we need talent? There is a difference, isn't there? And one's just basically saying we need the best people wherever they come from. The other one's actually saying I'm going to hold my nose and stomach it because I need you.
It's not only about getting the best people, it's getting the best out of the people. And if there are people who are uncomfortable in the working place, you're not getting the best out of your people.
Yeah.
And that's the real issue here. 1 in 3 LGBT people in North America are hiding their sexuality.
That's right.
In Switzerland, it's 75%, I heard this morning, and I assume there are many countries where it's 100%.
What?
So
In Switzerland, hiding?
In Switzerland, it's just, I was talking to an LGBT activist this morning here in Switzerland, a young lady who's setting up an organization around the theme, and 75%. That's a lot, Richard. That's the issue.
And people want to succeed by being who they are. And they can only succeed by being who they are if they see us succeeding by being who we are. And if we are not out and we're not visible, to Antonio's point, they don't think they can succeed by being who they are. And so they don't bring their whole self to the workplace, and we lose their value.
Well, we need to get your insight into this, Beth, because you were not open.
Yeah.
You were not open about who you were. So do you feel that you didn't give the best of, of who you could be?
5 years ago, if you'd asked me that, Richard, I would have told you I was giving everything and it was my best, and I was dead wrong. Dead wrong. I am so much better as a person, as a leader, as a colleague, as an employee. The EY is getting all of me now, and I had no idea that they weren't.
I agree
really
with Beth,
didn't.
actually. So if you think about, and I think we need to nudge this debate from diversity to authenticity. Actually, all of us lead a lot of thousands of people, as you're saying, Richard. And actually, people want to relate to human beings. And actually, if you leave your private life at home, this idea that at work you're just a different person, people don't relate to you. You don't have the same level of empathy. So actually, being out allows you to be more authentic, allows you to be a better leader. People like you more. I'm a banker, I'm pretty boring, actually. The fact that I'm gay makes me a bit more interesting. And I think that you need to use that in a positive way.
Okay, but let's get to the heart of this, and Antonio, start with you. There'll be those people who say that's easy for them. They're now at the top. Mm-hmm. And I understand that you said you came out young, but you were in middle-class industries. Mm-hmm. You were in white-collar industries. And this brings us to the discussion point that the journey is different for everyone.
It is, actually, and I think there are two different, I came out for 3 different reasons, actually. One, just for authenticity, as I talked about. I just couldn't hide the fact and try to pretend all the time. To Beth's point, it's too tiring. It takes too much energy. That was the first one. Second, I think you also, this is very positive, this debate, but you also need to protect yourself. At some point, you don't want that to be used against you. So
have you ever felt it's been used against you?
No, because I was out. But actually, we have many examples. John Brown, who is now Lord Brown, a dear friend, at some point this was his undoing. And actually, authenticity or the lack of can be used against you. I think the third reason is that it is good for business, as actually Lord Brown now has argued, because you become more authentic, you become more empathetic, you can use it positively. But the first 2 reasons are very powerful reasons for you to come out. And it's different, you're right, in every industry. But I think society is now behind us, so I think we have a responsibility to do it.
There are some insights here, because do you know why people hide that they're LGBT? Because they're afraid to make other people feel uncomfortable. Well, that's nonsense. So you just, the first thing that I did, say, if anyone has a problem, it's their problem. That's
well, you're looking quizzical.
I didn't worry about whether I made other people feel uncomfortable, I have to admit. I just thought my private life was my private life, and I didn't want to be defined.
Oh, yeah, it's a wonderful thing, because I've had that as well. My private life is my private life, and it's none of your business.
Yeah, and it was the dumbest thing I ever thought, but that's how I felt.
But back to your point that you were just saying, does that go that you see what I hear is everybody has their own journey to make. You all nod and agree with you. And with that.
Very personal.
It's a very personal thing, but you're all at the same time trying to say to people, come on in, the water's fine.
Well, you were asking about you're saying
Which
good for us. We're at the senior levels. This is why it's such an important issue, and why we're talking about it, and why we're trying to be very visible and authentic, is because all too often the young people today are out, they join organizations, and they go back in the closet because they don't think the water's safe.
Right. No, if there's one thing that I regret, Richard, so I've been out since I joined Accenture. Have I been out there like we are doing today enough? No, I have not been. I started doing that 5 years when I moved to the United States, frankly, because I think the United States is ahead of the game when it comes to LGBT and how it all works. So, I think being out there as senior leaders in the company is extremely important, because it's important that people see that you can make a career if you're a member of the LGBT family.
We're going to take a Twitter question. Our Twitter is #LGBT broadcast. We're going to get to as many of them as we can. #LGBT broadcast. Who are your role models, Antonio? Who are your role models?
In terms of LGBT...
anyway. You can take role models wherever
Look, this is the moment, Richard, whether you'd say it's Gandhi or etc., some cliche. Actually, I don't have a lot of specific role models as individuals. I think, back to this discussion, I think you need to have the personal courage to be yourself. And actually, I disagree a bit with the personal journey point. Of course, everybody is on their personal journey, but we have a personal responsibility to be out and visible, as Sander was saying. Because a lot of other people way back fought for LGBT rights, they fought for marriage equality, and we all benefit from that. So I think, as Tim Cook said, we need to put our brick in the wall of history, and I think we need to do that as leaders of businesses.
How important was Tim Cook coming out publicly?
Oh, very important.
I think it was a big deal.
Why do I feel there's a but coming up?
No, well, I think I think there's a distinction between being out and being out there. Probably he was already, I don't know him. I think he was sort of out. People knew. But now, him being out there, that's the biggest deal.
It's fantastic that he came out, but actually we need different examples also. So he was out there, he was out in his private life, but not his professional life. The fact that he came out was fantastic. But to your point, Richard, we also need to have role models of people that got there while they were out, because I think the Tim Cook example is, it's fine for Tim Cook now that he's the CEO of the largest company, but we are people that actually, we have been out at different stages of our life, and we've progressed despite, or in some cases because, we are open and authentic, and we need those role models too. The reason why Tim Cook is important is that there are a lot of very senior leaders that are closeted today, and Tim Cook has proven that it is safe to come out late in your life.
Yeah, but it's significant, surely, because I was asked a million times as I covered the story, how significant was it with Tim Cook? And I said it's very significant, not just because but because of the company that he's representing. It is the company that's the coolest company on the planet, arguably, except for your own wonderful companies.
Thanks, Richard. I appreciate that.
I work in banking. So.
Well, because arguably you want to, everybody's looking at the CEOs and the companies, and I'm sure there's people out there that were waiting for some backlash against Apple, and there wasn't. So those things they're really important messages.
Can I just go back to the role models? Because my role model was my uncle and his partner. They ran an advertising agency together, and they showed me you can be successful in business while being out.
And this was in
the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands.
And not in Amsterdam.
Glad you clarified that. And
I have a variety of them. For different reasons, and it's because difference matters. So anybody who has been courageous on the difference dimension, I think, is incredibly important.
Can I come back on the question earlier? So when I started, I was 22.
You're going to anyway.
No, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for allowing me. I was 22 and I was McKinsey, which is a fairly liberal institution. But I was in Portugal, which is not necessarily, at that time, was not a particularly gay-friendly country. So my role model at that point was the fact that the company had an LGBT group, cool name, GLAM, Gay and Lesbian and McKinsey, globally, that supported LGBT employees.
But why did you come out at that age? If you were working for McKinsey's, and if you were in that environment, and you said earlier, what drove you out? I don't, or was it a personal moment of endeavour?
It was honesty at that point. It was just being honest and truthful. It's very difficult, as most of us know, to actually hide your personal life. It's almost impossible to get into work and not talk about your personal life.
I'll
It
tell
is
my
absolutely
story.
driven by that.
Go on.
I joined Accenture, and the first week someone says, next Saturday is the office party. So what do? I thought, am I going to bring my partner? I said, yes, I'm going to bring my partner. And that's what I did. And it was okay.
That's the Netherlands.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about the Netherlands, but don't think that there is no issue in the Netherlands, because there's as much an issue in the Netherlands as anywhere else.
Yeah. But the key thing is, we as
Okay,
organizations...
so I know that. I need you to tell me your story.
I came out because of gay teens threatening to commit suicide. I mean, I would have never raised my hand and said, hey, I'm gay. I just wouldn't have. I was asked to do a video for the It Gets Better campaign for the Trevor Project to gay teens thinking of killing themselves. And I was supposed to do it as a straight ally. And reading the script as a straight ally, I said, I can't do this. I'm going to talk to gay teens. I want to tell them that their difference matters. Because at EY, I was, Richard, not only gay. For my entire career in a fairly male, extroverted, straight profession, I was a woman, a Democrat, and an introvert. So I have lived the life of difference matters on every dimension, and it's important.
Well, you've come a long way.
I've come a long way.
What do you mean? Well, she's still a woman. Are you a
Still
Republican?
a Democrat? No, but the introvert.
Ah,
introvert
no.
part.
All right, let's talk about the
I'm a
question.
fake
What can companies do to support the LGBT rights and personal leadership practically? Because we can pontificate as much as WEF does, as much as we like. Practical points. Go on.
Okay, now I'm going to steal a quote from a transgender colleague that we have in Accenture, and she says, the workplace must be a haven of inclusion, even in countries where it's outside more difficult.
What can we do practically?
Tone from the top, visible support. So it can't be inclusive. It can't be just policies. It has to be actions.
Examples, come on, examples.
Tone it. You got to have the right policies in place, right?
Right.
But then you got to have policies and actions that are in alignment, and then active allies from the top that are visibly supportive of the environment, so that the environment, as Sanders said, is safe. And it's clear that it's safe everywhere in the world. This personal journey issue is a big, everybody has, it's complicated. You can be out at work, you got to be out with your family, you have to be out in your communities. It is different for everyone. All we can control, all UI can control is our workplace and make it as safe around the world as possible.
My tip, I agree with all of them, but to build on that, I think you need to link the topic of LGBT diversity to broader diversity, but also to meritocracy, and Beth talked about this earlier. If you just talk about LGBT diversity, I think you run the risk of it becoming a bit of a niche issue. If you make it a broader issue about allowing everybody to be themselves, whatever makes them feel different, I think you have a much better chance of convincing all of, in our case, 250,000 employees.
Oh, he's back to trying to...
Yes, impressing you.
He's been dying to get that number in since you mentioned your 150,000. Now,
the other thing that we need, Richard, are networks, and
right,
employee
before we
networks
get to
all
networks,
around the world.
I want to just come back, because this idea of what companies can do. All right, you're the chief exec of HSBC UK that has an entire raft of probably a boatload of policies of non-discrimination, correct?
Yes, true.
Bottom line, that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah,
That's
the
a given.
minimum you need to
That's a
have.
given. That's right, thank you. But now, how do you, sir, implement that to the regional branch in Newcastle upon Tyne, in the middle of northeast England, on Tyneside or wherever, where, let's face it, hard-bitten shipbuilders might not be quite so tolerant.
Yeah.
And so give me a practical way of how you make it clear to the entire pasture diversity is okay.
So one, you need to talk about it. So actually, in preparation for this panel, I write a weekly blog on tons of different issues, and so I wrote a blog on this particular issue. we had something to celebrate on Stonewall, the Equality Index. We improved 222 spots from last year to this year. So we improved from last quartile to first quartile. So I talked about that, and actually with the CEO talking about that, the message gets out pretty quickly. I got hundreds of positive comments on, it's great that we're doing this, it's great that you're representing HSBC, it's great that we're talking about diversity. So talking about it and being open, as Beth was saying earlier, is extraordinarily important. And so you send a message that also it's unacceptable to be intolerant. You need to send both the positive incentive.
Carrot and a stick.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. How do companies operate globally in countries which are not gay friendly? This is the really tricky one. I mean, this is back to your Netherlands issue.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to agree, whatever the Netherlands is, it's certainly a lot better than maybe Iran.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Or even today's Russia. So, what do your companies do there? Start with you, Beth.
Well, you have to have the global, policy and consistency, but you have to implement it locally. You do have to be respectful of the local cultures. And so you have to work very carefully in those local cultures, being very clear about what you stand for. I think it's incredibly important, as Antonio said there, that we show up, we work with the local leadership there so that the employees in those local cultures see us working with their leader, and obviously their local leader is working with us and has no disrespect going on, so that they feel supported and safe.
And ultimately, if an employee, if you get wind, of a gay employee in a country that is less than friendly, you have to be, would you say you have to be proactive and making it clear to that person, if you want out, we'll find you somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If people come up and ask for help, we'll help them. That's how Accenture has always been.
So if I use my personal example, I moved from London to Hong Kong with my husband, and the company supported me and my husband. You could argue that I was already fairly senior. But the reason why I'm out and visible in the UK is because it also helps the 22-year-old in another country. And I think about myself when I was a 22-year-old and I actually was supported by a global network. I think that role is very important because, as you know, we've moved towards a much more tolerant Western acceptance of LGBT rights, but at the same time, there is a bit of a backlash in other parts of the world. So we have a responsibility as a global corporate, respecting the local customs, but we have a responsibility to protect our employees.
I think that is the critical point. Inclusive work environment, protecting the employees, whilst at the same time, it's navigation. Yeah? Countries are on a journey, people are on a journey, and we as Accenture are also on a journey, so we need to stretch, but in different ways in the different places.
How do you avoid, and maybe you don't, maybe it's a title that those of you, because let's face it, there were the original Stonewall, the fighters for freedoms, and they basically got the basic legal freedoms done. And arguably people like yourselves are the next wave of fighters for freedoms, working up the hierarchy. But how do you avoid being the gay CEO?
How do I avoid being the gay CEO?
Yeah.
It's a very good question.
The gay vice chair, the gay group CEO.
You don't avoid
It happens, actually.
That is the easiest thing to do, and that is make sure your business performs, make sure you do a good job. That's all you need to do.
Exactly. Focus on the business issues, be hard on the business issues, and actually deliver as a professional. The issue is, Richard, if 20 years from now, the only thing I'm remembered for is being a gay CEO, but I help that 22-year-old in the country be more comfortable about himself or herself, I probably will feel more proud than whatever banking product that I launched in my career as a banking CEO. So even if you are known as the gay CEO, but that helps someone somewhere, that's still worth it. So I risk the label because I think it's a worthy cause.
That's a price that you have to pay.
I guess, yes, but I think it also can help you. I think being gay these days in most countries, history is on our side. Actually, it makes you a more interesting, as I said, a more empathetic individual. I don't think is a negative.
That's exactly what Tim Cook said in his blog coming out when he said, I'm proud to be gay. Because of my minority status and my point of view, I have become more empathetic, as Antonio said. I value my difference. I hope every one of our employees values their difference.
One question, as I read Lord Brown's book, which you of course feature, when I read it, when you came out after so many years of being in, I say this with some respect, but so many years living a lie.
Yeah.
Was there a trust issue that people sort of said, oh, you can't do it? She lied for God knows how many years about what she really is. Can't trust her on this.
All I would say is I'm sure it engendered more trust as a leader by being out and being authentic.
Finally,
Absolutely.
as we come towards the end, what advice would you give young LGBT employees entering the workforce? Because I am extremely aware that we are sitting at the top of a mountain. You know, we all enjoy an element of success in our different careers in their different ways. And there'll be people who look, well, it's okay for them to say that. So what do you say to the youngster?
I would say be out on day one and behave naturally. You know, just talk about it as if you talk about it to your mother or to your friends or whoever. Be out on day one and it will be fine.
I would say pay attention to the organization you're joining. You're signing up to a corporation, you're signing up to a set of values. Make sure they align with yours. And if they don't and you don't feel like you can be out and be yourself, don't join.
That's crucial.
It's crucial. Don't join expecting something different.
People do that, don't they?
They do.
People join expecting that they're going to be able to rely on a legal basis of non-discrimination, and then suddenly turn around and find that actually the culture of the company is against them.
But there are lists out there. Out and Equal has a list. Human Rights Watch has a list. So just go online, watch the list, and see the companies who are scoring the 100 or the star or whatever it is.
So I would reinforce that, but actually maybe be slightly contrarian. Absolutely choose the right company, absolutely be out from day one, but then just be a really, really good employee. You need to trust that there's a meritocracy. Back to your point in the beginning.
Come on.
But actually, no, just,
Come on,
just
look.
it will protect you. At some point, I got to the point where I said, look, I'm good enough that I will be out. And actually, if I don't work in this company, someone else will employ me. So I think you need to have that personal confidence. A lot of LGBT people generally have 2 or 3 chips on their shoulders because they feel uncomfortable. They feel they're not confident. So if you're confident and good, you actually need to trust that the organization will be meritocratic.
What if you're not confident? You may still be good. I was going to say, what if you're not confident and not good? You probably shouldn't be in the job.
No, you asked me for advice. My
Right.
advice to a young LGBT employee, which I give to a lot of our, is actually be confident. Actually, and if you're not confident, fake it, and you'll become confident. There's an element of believe in yourself, like any other employee, and then progress. I think this is important. You can't really live a lie, and you can't live in fear that this will be a negative thing for you in your career. And if it is, change employers, back to your point earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Value your difference. You're valuable because of it, not in spite of it.
I've had this conversation with those who are in various organisations where I've been in, and you say to them, "Come on in, it's fine," or "Come on out, it's fine." to be more pleasant, but they don't believe you. They don't believe you. You're not. They just think it's. They just think.
But everybody's on a journey. You can't guarantee that everywhere in every organization that it's absolutely safe. So it's critical that you tell them you want everybody to be out, but then we've got it from all layers in the organization. This is why you need leaders who are inclusive. You need allies who are visibly active. You need senior executives.
I want to come to this. We've got the final 3 or 4 minutes. I want to leave on a note of an agenda of what needs to be done. All right? For the last few minutes, we're going to start with you, Beth. You were just saying what needs to be done. Where do we begin?
Well, one thing I think that really needs to be done is for us to talk more with allies and about the role of an ally. There's a spectrum of an ally from passive to active, and just having allies who are very supportive with a mug on the desk and a flag in their door isn't enough. But we need to make them comfortable having a dialogue around this, and I think we need to have more conversation with allies so that they know how to be supportive and talk about the issues.
Beth wants allies. So I know what for you is the number one agenda so that when we meet next year.
We need more role models. I know the people are there, and what I said, I've been out, but I've not been out there, so I would like to have more LGBT people out there as a role model.
I don't think anybody can doubt the fact you're out there now.
Absolutely.
You're out there. Finally.
We definitely need more people. I think at some point, if there's enough of us, you won't be the gay CEO because that becomes statistically something that actually is likely. So I would say as an advice, I think we need more people to be authentic. In business, and you think of Davos where we are, people are not particularly authentic. If we push that button, if we push that line, I think people will be themselves. And actually that will apply not just to LGBT issues, but to diversity more generally. And I think if we push that agenda, an agenda of authenticity, I think we'll be in a much better position next year.
Where hopefully, when we have this discussion next year, we never know. We might be down the road.
That would be nice.
We might be down the road in the building.
Without our coats on, actually.
Wouldn't that be nice?
With some heating.
Thank you very much. It's been good
Thank
to
you,
have
Richard.
you. Honoured to be with you on
Thank
this
you,
panel.
Richard.
Thank you,
Three
Richard.
leaders, all of whom giving us an extraordinary perspective of the LGBT agenda, making it quite clear the way forward and pointing out that the water's warm. Come on in.